Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am Paige and I am here today to talk to you about Dragcon UK versus Dragcon LA. Now, a lot of people have asked me what are the main differences between Dragcon UK and Dragcon LA. Well, I have now experienced Dragcon LA. I went this year, literally a couple of weeks ago with some of my friends, and I've done Dragcon UK twice. So I do have some perspective on both the conventions, and just remember, this video is my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm correct, it's just my experience and how I felt about the thing as a whole. So I've had some input from my friends about people that have gone before to LA, and I've had some questions given to me by some of you as well. So I'll be answering them. I will be going through and making little sections of this video, so it will be like price and location and queens and all-star and all that jazz. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy the video. So my first section today is going to be price. Now, I feel like this is the most important for a lot of people. Is it worth the money? Is basically the question that you're all going to be asking. Actually, someone did ask me this question. So they asked me, if you take into consideration the conversion prices, which one was cheaper? Now, I feel like this is crazy, but Dragcon LA was actually more expensive per queen. Now, I don't know whether this is because it's in dollars, but a lot of the American queens, it's their home, had more expensive booths. For example, a lot of the boss girlies, when they're here in the UK, are about 25 to 30 pounds, depending on if they're a winner or how popular they are. Now, in America, Vanjie was $45. Now, I know that she's just come off of a fresh season, like she's doing really well, like she's really popular, but $45 is more than Michelle Visage was charging at Dragcon UK this year. So something's been lost there. Roxy Andrews, $45. At Dragcon UK, you would not see anyone besides, I think Trinity the Tuck charged like £40 or something, like last Dragcon. But I think the problem is that queens are not targeting the right audiences. For example, you have queens that have been on lesser known franchises and have not got as big of a fan base, that are going to Dragcon obviously to meet their fans and stuff, but are charging extortionate prices. For example, Ocean Aqua Black, who is from Canada's Drag Race, was charging $40 to meet her at Dragcon. Now, I don't know if this changed after the announcement or anything like that, but $40 is a lot of money, especially, you know, when you're still trying to get yourself out there and like want people to come and meet you. I just feel like if you're at a convention like Dragcon, you need to make your prices so that you can make a profit, but also so that people do want to come and see you. But this also sort of leads on to a point of something else, which I will come back to price in a minute, but I feel like this is quite important and linked to people wanting to come to a booth. Someone asked me a question. What's her name? It's Priyanka. Cannot believe Priyanka asked me a question, so hey! She asked me, what do you like to see when you go to a queen's booth? Now, linking off of the price thing, I love to see exclusive merch. I want to get something at Dragcon that nobody else can get in the real world. Like, if you go to Dragcon, you get this from this queen and then no one else can have it, and it makes it feel like it's more of a special experience. I feel like, you know, even if it's a little bit more spenny, like at least I'm getting something that's exclusive to me. And I know a lot of queens do that, but I feel like it could be done more. Do you know what I mean? Like, people go to Dragcon to see these queens and to get their merch. Like, a lot of the time, well, pretty much all the time, you have to buy merch in order to meet the queens. So you might as well have something that's like valuable and like personal and like unique as well. Like, you can all have a t-shirt, but is that t-shirt one that you've just got on your website, or is that a t-shirt that only people that have come to meet you can wear? Do you know what I mean? I feel like that is something that's really important to me, and I don't know if queens are doing that enough at the moment, but I do understand, obviously, things are made in bulk, so you do have to order based on how much people are going to like it, and then if you order just for Dragcon and then people don't buy them, you do have to then go and sell the rest of them online, so I do understand that. But in my opinion, I feel like there should be at least 1 or 2 exclusive merch items just for Dragcon for pretty much every queen. Back to the price element. Now, I can't factor in my hotel costs purely because I went to LA for other things other than Dragcon. So I couldn't tell you whether my hotel was cheaper or more expensive for Dragcon than at the UK, because my trip was not solely based around Dragcon LA. I will say there is a lot of hotels around Dragcon, so you do have a lot of opportunity for the more expensive and the lower end. I would say I was in like a 3.5 star like little hotel in downtown LA, so like I went for the affordable option. And if I'm thinking of conversion rates, I would say it is probably a similar price to what I paid for my hotel room this year at Dragcon. However, I did split the cost too with people. So at LA I shared with 3 people in a room, which split my cost, and this year at Dragcon UK I shared with someone, which split my cost. So I think that is the most cost effective way to do Dragcon, is try and find as many people as possible to share a room with, so that your price is like halved or thirds or like quartered, and then that way you have more money to spend on your tickets or parties or shows or whatever you want to do when you're at Dragcon. Something else price-wise was the food. Now, I will say Dragcon LA had more food options available inside the convention centre. Like, you did not have to leave the actual room that you were in order to get food. However, the prices were extortionate. Why are you charging me $7 for a plate of fries that's about this big? It's a lot. I do understand, get your money's worth, and they were lovely waffle fries. I really did enjoy my waffle fries both days. However, $7 is ridiculous. Now at Dragcon UK, when you go out of the actual room that you're in, there are loads of food places. However, these can get really busy because there's usually loads of other conventions going on at the same time, which now leads me onto the location part of this video. So location wise, Dragcon LA is a singular convention centre. There is one thing going on at the time. It is one big massive like room, and Dragcon was the only thing happening, which means that food, I mean, it was still busy, don't get me wrong, because there was lots of people at Dragcon LA, but it was easier to get to, because when I went to Dragcon UK this year, they had MegaCon, I think it was called, which was like all these anime like cosplay people, and they were going for lunch at the same time as us. So your wait time for food was a lot longer, which meant your day at Dragcon was a lot longer, and the prices as well were just as expensive. Like, it was, I think it was about £4 or £5 for some fries, which is about $7. So they're really, you know, appealing to the market. They realise it's a busy place, let's charge people so much for food. I had this debate with Jan, right? Jan Sport, love her. Is the UK location bigger than the US location? Because in LA, the convention centre is this way, which is landscape, whereas in the UK, it is portrait, so it goes that way. So when you are in the US, the pink carpet is down the middle, but the rows of queens go down there and down there, whereas when you come into UK, you go down here, the main stage is here, and then the queens are sort of lined like this. It's a bit confusing, but if you've been there, you know exactly what I mean. So I cannot actually tell you whether it is bigger or not. However, I felt that UK is bigger. Maybe it's the way it's laid out, maybe there wasn't so many queens there this year, maybe the way that the booths were next to each other. Like, I did feel like there were a lot of booths like stacked on top of each other. For example, like Gothic Kendall, Hanaconda, Mike Moruli were in like this little like back alley corner where you had to like go through all the shopping stuff and like down a little path just to find them. Like, some queens were like readily seen and available like on the edges and the outskirts, and then some were like hidden in like these tiny little alleys, and it was just really badly laid out, in my opinion. Like, I really didn't feel like queens were getting the space that they deserved. However, I will say that one thing that I really enjoyed was, you know, when you have like Catwalk Alley and Glamazon Boulevard and all that, it had the booth numbers underneath the name of the places, which was so helpful, because before I go to Dragcon, I always plan who I'm going to see and what their booth numbers are, so I can literally look at my list and be like, oh, 2417 is down here, because they show you that it's 2300 to 2400 and 2400 to 250 and so on, and you can actually go straight there. Whereas at the UK, they don't do that, so you're sort of like wandering around, and it takes you a while to like get used to where people are as well. Like, it usually takes me a good few hours in the first day to like adventure and explore around, to sort of like take mental note of, oh, you're here, you're here, you're here, because it's not necessarily laid out in the right number order. In terms of accessibility, I would say that Dragcon UK is better. Their viewing platforms are located at a much better angle to the stage. Like, when I went to the after party, I went to the season 16 after party at Dragcon LA. I was looking for the platforms, the All Stars platforms and the accessibility platforms, and I couldn't see them. And I didn't actually know that they were there until we left and we saw that they was at the side. Now, I didn't sit in them, so I don't know what the view was like from there, but I can't imagine that it was great because the action's going on here, but you're sat facing this way. So you can't actually see what's going on. I will say the staff were more helpful at LA in terms of telling people where to go and what the queens were doing, whether they was on breaks and stuff. They had people dedicated to each booth that weren't like the people that were working for the booth. It was like people that were actually like volunteers for the convention centre, which was really helpful. They had an info desk as well, which is really, really helpful, which I don't know where that is at UK. I've never once seen them mention, oh, we have an info desk, oh, we have a lost and found desk. Like, it was a lot more organised. And now going on to organisation, they had such better security in LA. You had to go through like one of the body scanners, then you had your bags checked like thoroughly as well, and they really made sure that everyone was safe, whereas in the UK they do not do checks. Like, they say they do bag checks. Like, I've spoken to my friends, pretty much none of us have ever had our bags checked, and if we have, it's just like a little, and that's it. They don't rummage through, they don't look to see what's in there. And there was an incident at Dragcon UK, I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but there was actually protests going on in the venue. Why were they even allowed in the first place? Like, where is the security to keep those people out? Like, I don't quite understand. So from a safety perspective, I would say that LA is definitely much safer and also probably a nicer environment in terms of the people that were working there, and everyone seemed like super helpful, and if you had any questions, like, you felt like you could go up and approach people, whereas at the UK I don't feel like I've ever been able to do that, and I've always been a bit wary of like, oh, there's people in here that, like, you know, haven't been checked. I mean, I'm sure nothing is going to happen at Dragcon, but you know, when you just have like that anxiety of like, why haven't everyone's bags been checked? I would much rather it take a longer amount of time and like get everyone checked than like worry. Do you know what I mean? But don't worry, we don't need to worry about Dragcon UK. I'm just saying, now I've experienced LA, I would love that security treatment in the UK. So now I'm going to talk about the All Stars ticket experience. I have got an All Stars ticket every time I've been to Dragcon, purely because I get FOMO and I always want the best. However, is it worth it? Now, everyone asks me this when I've been to UK, let alone in LA. Like, you know, I've travelled across the world. Is my All Stars ticket giving me the All Stars treatment? Well, that's what we're about to find out. So I would say in LA, queuing wise, I had more success with my All Stars ticket than I do in the UK. There was a lot more All Stars queues and I did get in faster for a lot of these queues. Like Vanjie, I waited 45 minutes instead of 3 hours, which some people were waiting, which was fucking crazy. For Angeria, I got in like 10 minutes, Plasma 10 minutes, like 5 minutes even, like it was so quick. But I will say I do think that the booths were more organised in LA in terms of, right, one from here, one from here, one from here, two from here. Like, they were making sure that All Stars ticket holders were getting their All Stars ticket. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were treating them better. However, not all queens used the All Stars thing, and some of them didn't need to. Like, there was short enough queues that they could sort of be like, well, you know, you can come in and you can go chat. One thing that I was encouraged to talk about was the VIP hour in the first hour. So when you go to Dragcon, you get an extra hour at the start of the day if you are a VIP. So on the first day, you can go in a little bit earlier and see the ribbon cutting, and then you can get your space for the pink carpet. So you're in at around 8:45 when general admission come in at 10. So you've got a lot of space and time to yourself. However, in LA, maybe 2 queens showed up for the VIP hour on both days, which it feels a bit like a waste. Like, I was just wandering around, like, waiting to meet somebody, and like no one was there. And obviously I get, you know, it's an early start, like it's a busy day, you probably had a busy day the day before as well if you're like coming on the Sunday, but people were paying like extra for an All Stars, and if you can't guarantee that there's going to be enough queens there that people are going to want to meet, don't advertise that as part of your All Star section. I will say there are more queens that are there in the first hour in the UK, but there's still not, you know, that many. Like, in an hour you probably get 2 queens done at least, like depending on who you're meeting. So that would be a benefit, you know, you get 2 more queens ready before you start the day, and you don't get that. So I feel like that's something that they need to evaluate. Like, I understand if the queens can't make it at 9, but don't promise that there will be queens that you can meet at 9. like maybe provide something else, maybe put on a performance or something exclusive to the VIPs in that hour that makes that hour worth it. Okay, so that leads me on to talking about the queens, the range of queens that were there, what queens were there, what my experiences were like with the queens there. And on a whole, I mean, I would say I would have the exact same experience at UK or LA with the queens. Like, I don't really feel like where they are changes how they are with people. However, I would say that I actually had way more of my faves at Dragcon UK this year than I did in LA, which is crazy because the American season was my first season, so it's my favourite. Like, I have gravitated towards those queens. That's just personal preference. There was more US queens at UK Dragcon than there were at LA Dragcon. That's your home. That's where you live. That's your country. Why are you not there? I was so confused. I was like, don't get me wrong, they had an amazing range of queens at LA, but were they queens that necessarily had fan bases and, you know, were people that a lot of people knew about? I don't know. Like, I don't watch a lot of the international franchises, so I cannot tell you how, you know, popular these people are. However, there were a lot of empty queues and a lot of empty booths, and I was just a bit confused, especially with Mexico. Their season hadn't come out yet, so it was a bit like no one really knew who they were. So then people were like, well, I'll meet you because obviously I'm excited for the season to happen, but like, you had people there that people didn't really know who they were, and I feel like that was like disheartening people. Like, you had a couple of big names, like you had Vanjie, you had Roxy, you had Jada, like you had some big people there, but I feel like sometimes, unfortunately, the Drag Race fandom are a little bit like, if I don't know who you are, you're not important to me, which is not the attitude to have, by the way. But when you go to a convention like Dragcon, you know, you need to have those big hitters like spread across your convention centre so that people feel like they want to come. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like when you do a West End show and then you stunt cast so that people get seats, like people come and watch the show. That's kind of like what you need to do for Dragcon, is that if you strategically put like Roxy Andrews next to like a queen from Mexico, those people are then going to go and visit that queen next door because they're going to see her from her queue. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's all about like strategy. Like, we want these queens to become popular, we want them to get the flowers that they deserve, but there's a way of going about it that isn't hiding them in a corner so they're not going to make their money back. Like, it was all a bit weird. Don't get me wrong, I was really happy with the amount of queens that I met. Like, I think I met 17 queens at Dragcon LA, which is incredible. Met queens from Canada, UK, America, and had chats with some from other franchises like Walking Past or whatever. So, you know, I had a really great experience, but for me, I don't feel like the range of queens that are there would impact my experience. I'm very much like, I'll get to know everybody, and like, if I see a queen that like looks interesting, like I'll go and check out her booth. But I am very sort of set on my faves, and like I will visit them first if they're there. And I didn't have a lot of my faves at Dragcon LA, so it was quite hard for me to try and enjoy that experience when a lot of my friends did have their faves there and they were getting recognised and stuff. But I did have like Raja O'Hara, who I absolutely adore, and I have a great relationship with her, and she really helps me make this Dragcon feel really special. So thank you very much for that, Raja. I love you very much, and I hope to see you in the UK soon. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was better or worse. I would say there was more queens at Dragcon LA, but there were more queens at Dragcon UK that I wanted to see, just based on personal preference. Like, if you love the international franchises, LA was good, and if you watch them and stuff, but I don't, which I know is a bit like, you know, you love Drag Race, but you don't watch everything. I don't have time. What do you mean they're bringing out an All Stars every like 6 months at this point? You want me to watch everything? You want me to watch US and All Stars and versus the world here and versus the world there? There's a lot of Drag Race. I was gonna say there's too much Drag Race, never too much Drag Race, but there's a lot of Drag Race, so like, give a girl a break. But however, I would say when there's a new season, I do follow the queens on Instagram and I do check out their stuff and I do support them. So, you know, I do know who a lot of them are, but I am just very stuck in my ways of, you know, oh my god, I'm a fan of you, I have to meet you. I would rather spend my money on people that I'm like, oh my god. Okay, so now we are going to go on to the little extras section. We got loads of free stuff at LA. I was like, yes please. If you say the word free, I'm coming running. So I went to the Elf booth on Sunday morning. Yeah, that's where Heidi was. She had a free meet and greet, first of all. Free meet and greet with Heidi in Closet. Free merch from Heidi in Closet. Free elf I have blush on my finger. Free elf makeup. I also got free Got To Be stuff, not from this, but I got free Got To Be stuff. They were just putting Got To Be stuff in the bathrooms. And then I had like some hair gel, some hairspray. I was like, give me more. So I came home with like tote bags full of free shit. It was amazing. It was nice and cold in the LA Convention Centre. It was really nice. I wasn't sweating my titties off. Well, actually, that's a lie. Day one, I was sweating my titties off. They didn't turn the aircon on day one, and every queen I went to were like, fucking hell. I was like, tell me about it. The aircon is on, but it's not on. Vanjie had a great idea. She had a fan in front of her, and it was like giving her the Beyonce moment, as well as like cooling her down. Day two, though, they really turned up the aircon, and it was. But then I feel like in the UK, you don't need that. But it is sometimes like either really hot or really cold in the convention centre in the UK. There's absolutely no in between. Something that I kind of missed in LA was the cloakrooms, where you can put like bags and coats and anything that you want to take with you, but you know, you don't want to carry it around. I didn't have that at LA, and I feel like maybe that would have been helpful. Like at lunchtime I could go like drop off the merch that I'd purchased and then have a bit of a lighter bag. I don't know, it's just like a convenience thing. I feel like that would have just made it a tiny bit easier. But also I do make the most of cloakrooms at UK, because usually I travel home the day that the convention finishes, so I take my suitcases to the cloakroom and then I can go straight home. I didn't have to do that at LA this time, so I guess maybe I didn't need it, but just having that option would have been nice. So I've written down some similarities between the two that, you know, are very the same. That's what similar means, but duh. So my first one was my experience with the Queens. I've already discussed. Literally would not change anything if I was in LA or UK. Like maybe I was a little bit more excited in LA, I don't know, and a lot more of my conversations revolved around me being like from Essex. But I do get that in the UK as well, because obviously a lot of the queens that I'm meeting are not from the UK, so then they're like, I love your accent. But yeah, I feel like my experiences wouldn't change with them whether it was in the UK or LA. Another thing is the after parties, which I love. I love a Dragcon after party. They are exactly the same. Exactly the same. You stand there, you run. Actually, this was good in LA. They did not let people run for their places at the front until literally you were like here to the stage. Like it was very much like, right, we're controlled, now go. Whereas at UK, it's like people like running around the booths and like pushing security guards out the way, and like you've seen that video of people being dragged, which I'm in that video, by the way. I'm not the one being dragged, but yeah, I feel like that was a bit more organised. But in terms of the way that it's run and the amount of performances that the queens do, it's exactly the same. But I have a great time at the parties, like no matter what. The after parties were similarly priced, so yeah. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but why does Dragcon look so dingy? Why are there no overhead lights? Like I understand that the queens in their booth have lights, but I walk in and it's like a horror show. It's dark and I'm walking around and it's like, feels like everyone's about to creep about, like it's weird. And they always, like both in the UK and US, it was just very much like I didn't like the atmosphere. At some point in the day I do think they turn the lights on because I don't feel it as much, but when you first walk in the morning, it's very dingy. And it kind of looks like it's just in a shed. Like it really doesn't look very glitzy and glamorous, which is something that I feel like Dragcon on a whole could work on. It's like, without the booths there, it's just like, meh. Like, give me some excitement. This just reminded me about vendors, like the amount of shops and shopping opportunities at LA was a lot better. I'm not personally a shopper at Dragcon because it's fucking expensive. I'm already spending so much money like meeting queens anyway that I don't really buy anything, but I will say there was so much stuff. So like if that is people's things, then LA is definitely better in terms of like buying things. Both Dragcon UK and Dragcon LA are busy in general. Like there are a lot of people in a little room, so it feels like there's loads of people. Obviously there was way more at LA. Like I do feel like there was loads more, and I noticed that especially like as an all-star when you first get let in like the little pig pens, there was a lot. I would say it's less noticeable in the UK about how busy it is, but I feel like they're more evenly spread out in LA, so it's kind of hard. It's kind of like a similar busyness in terms of size. Do you know what I mean? Like in accordance to size, it looks the same amount of busy. So I feel like I have covered almost everything. Now I haven't gone into details about how much I paid for things like hotels and flights because I don't feel like that's something I want to talk about. I will say it was fairly affordable in terms of, if you think of LA, like you're gonna think it's like spenny. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, so I will say that. However, I would say if you are thinking of doing Dragcon LA, you need to budget a lot of money because hotels and then flights and then your ticket and then meeting people, you're at least looking at over $1,000. That's the rough figure we're looking at. So if that's something you want to do, start saving right now, because I saved for a year because I knew I wanted to go on a big holiday. It was my 21st birthday, that's why I went to LA, but I didn't know where I wanted to go. And then I saw that Dragcon was announced a couple of days after my birthday, so I was like, okay, might as well go. Like, I mentioned it to my friends and they were like, yeah, we want to go. So we just did it, which was a really impulsive decision, but a great one at that. So I have a couple of questions from people on Twitter, so thank you for that. I've covered some of them already in the video, but these are ones that didn't like necessarily link to any specific section. So my first question is from Ida. Hey Ida, love you. You are amazing at drag and your recreations are the best out there. I love seeing you every year at Dragcon, you make my day. She asked me about whether the events going on around Dragcon are better or worse in LA or London, and whether London should take some inspiration from LA in terms of like how many shows they actually have going on during the time of Dragcon. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not a party girl. I do Dragcon, I do the after parties sometimes, and then I go to bed. So I don't know if I'm like the most equipped to answer this question. What I will say is it definitely was more noticeable that in LA they had a lot more shows going on surrounding Dragcon than London. Like London do not have anything going on really apart from Heaven, and Heaven's not that accessible and it's not as close to the venue, whereas they had like Love Ball and Evie was doing like a book signing and there was loads of other stuff going on like during the time that we were there in LA. So I feel like if people did want to go out of an evening, like even Queens were like promoting me their shows, like Scarlet Envy was like promoting me her show in WeHo, like there was a lot going on. So I feel like if you like the nightlife and you like seeing drag performances outside of Dragcon, LA is definitely the place for you because they have so much going on. Like London could do so much more, so do it London. Abby asked me a really interesting question on, did you notice a difference between the popularity of queens in the UK to LA? Did you notice that UK queens were more popular in US or vice versa? And actually, surprisingly, no. The UK queens are more popular in the UK and the US queens are more popular in the UK. I don't quite know how that happened. There was quite a few UK queens that were left without a queue. Pretty much the entirety of Dragcon, they had very, very short queues and when they were just waiting around. And I was shocked because they're like drag royalty over here. Like they're people that have really like made their way into the industry and are very well known and very well liked. So to see them having like no one at their booth was like shocking to me. And you think like they've gone over to America, so people would want to see them because it's like their only opportunity. It was just weird. And like the US queens, I mean, they probably were just as popular in the US as they were in the UK, but I feel like in the UK you notice it more because people are like gravitating towards the bigger names because they're like, oh, it's our only opportunity to see them, which you think would happen in the US, but I don't know. But yeah, I would say UK queens are more popular in the UK and US queens are more popular in the US, which is quite surprising to me. So my good friend Drag Mick, aka Nick, asked me if I had fun meeting him, and I really did. That's one of my favourite things about Dragcon, is meeting people, getting pictures, getting nice outfits, like making yourself feel cool and cute and sexy, and like just getting to know everybody and getting to build on those relationships with people that you have online. Like they always say, don't meet people that you meet online, like they're all scary. They're not scary. I went on holiday to LA with people that I met online and they're all great. So, you know, it was the best time. I love meeting my friends and I love experiencing it with them and going to booths with them and seeing them meet their faves. Like, it's such a nice experience. So I guess the overarching question is, which one do I enjoy more? Now, as you can tell by this video, there wasn't really much difference between LA and UK, like the way that I was discussing them. And I guess you're right, there isn't much of a difference, which makes me lean more towards the UK, as I am from the UK. If there's not as much difference between the two conventions, I don't need to travel halfway across the world to go to Dragcon, because I have Dragcon at home. So, you know, I could travel half an hour up the road to go to Dragcon, or I could travel 9 hours on a plane. So I'm going to choose the half an hour option. As much as it was a great experience and, you know, nothing like bad happened, like nothing happened for me to not want to go. It was great. I just don't see myself going again. I don't feel like I got like, oh my god, I'm in LA. I never got the vibes of like, oh, I'm in America. It just felt like the UK one in a different venue. So my personal opinion is I probably wouldn't go to Dragcon LA again, but I had a great time and I made some great memories, and if I went to LA again, I wouldn't be going just for Dragcon. I don't think I went to LA just for Dragcon this time either though. We went to Disney, we went to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, like we did like touristy stuff as well, which I think as well is something you need to factor in, is don't just go for Dragcon because you will be disappointed. Like, go and do other things as well, so that you've got a trip and experience of a lifetime, as instead of just like putting everything into Dragcon. Because also you're gonna have to book this trip quite far in advance, and like for me as well, I booked it not knowing a lot of the queens that were going to be there, and I ran the risk of a lot of my faves not being there, and that was unfortunately the case. So, you know, just don't put all your eggs into the Dragcon basket, because, you know, if you want to surprise this person or see that person and they don't end up coming, or they cancel last minute, that way you won't be as disappointed, because you'll still be experiencing something fun, but you also have other things to look forward to. Do you know what I mean? So I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I had a really fun time talking about all of my opinions and how I experienced Dragcon LA versus UK. Now obviously I've been to Dragcon UK twice, whereas I've been to LA once, so maybe I have a bit more of a biased view towards UK, but overall, UK, you've won, you're my girlie. I will see you again in UK 2025. So if you have any more questions, please do leave them in the comment section below, or tweet me at blhtrixya, and I will see you guys again for another video soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.